We're live. What's up, guys? What is up? Boy, we got an episode for you today. If you do not recognize the guy in the middle, you are missing out. But I wanted to say welcome to Deck Talk Podcast. If you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
And I am Norman Lee. We got a great episode tonight, Colin, but first, this episode is brought to you by Firefly Outdoor and Marine, the #1 navigation lights on the water. Truly like fishing under a full moon with 100% reduced glare. But you know what? Here's the thing. You have got to check out their all new Shore Stacker box. Now, bank fishing and surf fishing just became easier and more enjoyable. The new Firefly Shore Stacker. It's made out of a high impact resistant resin and has lockable handles with plenty of tackle storage space, along with a built in cooler for an enjoyable night of fishing. Pair your Shore Stacker with the Firefly Stern Light and you'll have hours of fishing fun and non blinding light with hardly any bugs. Go to www.fireflymarine.com. Make sure, don't forget, use discount code DECKTOP10. Again, that's fireflymarine.com using discount code DECKTOP10. Get your Firefly and navigation lights and your Shore Stacker today.
Heck yeah, guys. Hey,
That's a lot.
we have one heck of a guy coming on. It is a special guest. I've been watching his. I was just telling him I've been on his as a subscriber to his YouTube channel, which is BassGeek. Round 200 mark, little over 200 is when I started following him, and he has been busy, and now he's almost pushing 71,000. So if you don't know this guy, you are missing out. This is my good buddy Hank with Basket. What's up, brother?
The
What's
best
going on,
dude.
guys?
What's up, Hank?
What's up? What's up? Hey, thanks for letting me come on the show, guys. I
Man,
really, really, really appreciate it. Sorry if you see me looking up, I'm sharing it out. So some of my geeks hopefully can jump in there
Oh,
heck
there
and
you go.
yeah,
make sure we get some guys over here for you too. And
Yeah,
that
that
is
is.
awesome. So let's get the show started, brother. Now, how uh, how did you get started into fishing? Was it something that you've done it with your dad or your grandfather, or your mom, or something like that, or how'd you get
well,
started?
into bass fishing. You know, uh, I started, of course, when I was a kid with the gateway drug, panfish and bluegill.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
all of us.
Yeah.
that's
So, when I was little, but man, my dad didn't fish. What was funny is he's a mechanic, diesel mechanic. When I was a kid, he'd always watch, NASCAR. Well, Bill Dance, Roller Martin, and all that would always come on before. So I'd sit there in my, my Superman or my Batman underoos, and watch that stuff in the morning. And that always piqued my interest. When I was a kid. And what ended up happening, my papa, my mom's dad, he was a big angler, but he's what I call a meat angler. He didn't call nothing. Everything went in the frying pan.
it went to the frying pan.
Yeah, but I was young enough before he passed. I didn't really get to fish with him a whole lot, but uh, luckily enough, there's a small reservoir that just a municipal reservoir, trolling motor only. And so, way back in the olden days, as old as I am, my grandmother had got lung cancer, and she would take us up there, and we'd take my papa had a little 14-foot John boat that was chained to a tree up there. We'd take a little motor guide and a little car battery, and me and my brother, I was probably 12, 13. And can you imagine doing this today? Your mom would just let us out with our bikes, and we'd be out on the lake all day. It's up on a mountain, so there was never nobody around but us.
Nah.
And
Those were the good days back then, man.
good,
Where
yeah,
you
back
get
when you
home
could
from
be a
school and
kid.
your parents had to track you down to
Yeah.
come get your butt in for dinner.
Well, you know what? So she'd drop her bikes off, and it was downhill, and she'd always be like, "Well, if you ain't here by the time I'm leaving you." So back when kids could be kids, didn't have to worry about all
Yeah.
the crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
that's kind of how like we got into bass fishing. We were like, well, I love my papa, but I don't want no minnows. I want to come out here and catch them on a spinner bait, and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So
Today, to find the kids, man, all you got to do is put a tracker on their cell phone. It usually
yeah,
tracks them to the
yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Listen, there's so much I wouldn't let my kids do, and I mean, that both my kids are grown now, and they got, done got me some grandkids going on. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I sit back and I tell them the stories, and they're like, "Dad, you'd never." I was like, "No, there's no way I'd let you go out and run through the woods like I did."
But if we had the technology and like when we was a kid that had a cell phone and our parents could
Oh, I'd be
track
in
us,
jail.
I would be in trouble.
Oh yeah, I'd probably been in jail 3 times over.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. I
I
mean,
tell
it's
you
true.
what, though, and I've been on record as saying this before. I really don't think the younger generation of today could survive back in our day when we were growing up.
Oh no, no,
There'd be
no.
no way they could survive back then with what they know and what they have today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, so when did you get started into YouTube?
So I've been doing YouTube 7 years, going on 8 now.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't really want to do it, to be honest with you. Like I was dead set against it. Um, I love fishing, and so I coached football at my local high school, kind of just as a side thing. I did that for 13 years, offensive, defensive line, and I was like, I was watching tactical bassing, and they were like, "Yeah, you ought to get a GoPro. It's like watching game film." And I was like, "Cool, game film. Okay, that I can relate
That
to."
piqued your interest.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was like, "Man, I remember every fish that I've ever caught, what I was throwing it on, how I was throwing it, what time of year." Because I can't remember my anniversary with me and my wife that's been married, but I can remember the exact fish. Even my buddy who works with me and fishes with me, he tells his girlfriend, he's like, "This dude can tell you exactly where he's caught every fish." He said every time we go to a spot, he's like, "I caught this one over here, and I had the line up right here, and I was fishing this, and the wind was blowing this way." But I mean, I was used to screaming at 16, 17-year-old little fat boys. I mean, I'm a offensive defensive line coach. You're coaching the hog mollies. They got to be tough, and
Yeah.
so I didn't. I was like, well, I'm gonna take the handy cam from the school, strap it to my back deck seat, and I want to see. And that was right about the time that the A rig hit real hot.
Yeah.
And I picked that A rig up, threw it out there, and my first catch was a double smallmouth, and I was like, "Wow, this is the greatest thing ever!"
Yeah.
And I would have swore to you that those fish hit that within just a few seconds of the cast. But when I went back and watched it, I was halfway to the boat, and I'd noticed that I did a little twitch, and I was like, "Oh," and that's when they hit it, and I was like, "Well," it's like
That
maybe
little
there is something to
reaction
this.
off it. Yeah, because that's when I was trying to learn how to throw an A rig. Yours was one of the videos that I watched
Oh
on
yeah. Now
throwing an
listen,
A
I
rig,
love an A rig. If it's got a
and
swim bait attached to it in any way,
yeah,
I'm loving it.
yeah, that
So,
that and I've noticed that the top water deal kind of gets
oh dude,
your blood pumping too.
and that's a well. Let me back up before we go down that rabbit hole. But so what ended up happening was, I'd actually taken television productions in high school, and I was actually going to go to
Cool.
college for sports broadcasting. And me and my wife, we next year we'll be married 30 years. And
Congrats.
we got pregnant, as seniors in high school. Thing happens, love blossoms,
Yeah.
and so I had to kind of change plans up, go out and get a job and be a man, and luckily my wife was as much a mom as she was a wife, and she smacked me around when I needed it and stuck it out with me in the early days. But anyway, that's my my I edited out all the dead time because I don't know about y'all, but in between them three fish that I catch on videos, there's a lot of downtime most of the time.
Oh,
To
yeah.
be honest.
There's a lot. This is how we got the podcast name Deck Talk, is
Yeah,
because
yeah,
during that three fish in that gap of the three fish, we're
yeah,
just standing on the deck just talking. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
how we've come.
And so, so I was like, well, hey, because back when I was editing in high school, it was all tape. There wasn't
Yeah.
no computers back then. And so I was like, man, I bet they've got editors for computers now. And that just kind of led down a rabbit hole. And I edited a couple of videos, and of course, my son and my daughter seen them, and my best friend seen them, and they were big YouTube people, and I didn't even really watch YouTube, and they were like, "You ought to be on YouTube," and I was like, "No, no," I was like, "All I need is some foul mouthed 13-year-old kid to get on there for me to tell him I'm gonna hunt him down, take my belt off, and stick a bar of soap in his mouth, and me end up in jail for threatening a 13-year-old somewhere." But and they kind of talked me into it. I did a lot of research because that's just who I am, and kind of wondering how I wanted to do it and what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a how-to channel. I'm not really, I mean, I'm not very entertaining, so I love fishing and I love the ins and outs of it, and I thought if I can help guys like me who I didn't get to fish a lot of tournaments when I was younger because I was always, and I know this is going to sound like a total ball face lie every time I tell it, it's true, but I'm very competitive. That's probably the better way to tell this story.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to go out and jump on a boat with somebody and be the nightmare co-angler story and look like a
Right.
total idiot. So, I just spent a lot of time learning and, didn't fish with a lot of guys because I was always like, I'm not good enough. I don't want to go out here and embarrass myself with these guys.
Yeah.
And so I call it, I beat water and learned the hard way.
Yeah. But that's one thing that I like about your channel, and that I always will fall back to going to your channel, especially, uh, which is going to be a question here coming up here pretty soon. But especially trying to find, like, if I don't know really how to throw this type of bait, or what
Yeah.
kind of technique I need to use, or even some kind of modifications and stuff, because you go through all of that also into your videos, and you say you're not very entertaining, but that helps. And I'm not trying to, don't take it as I'm trying to bash
Yeah.
you,
No, no, no.
but I think that helps because you get straight to the point on
Yeah.
that, and that might be because of your coaching experience, to where you don't beat around the bush when you're trying to tell
Yeah.
some kids what to do. You just got to get straight to the
Yeah.
point.
We got a limited amount of time and we
Yeah.
got to go. Now, don't get me wrong. As you can tell, I can talk and I can ramble. I will chase rabbits down holes all day long.
Oh yeah, we
But
that's what we should have named this podcast.
yeah,
Rabbit hole, or
chasing,
rabbit
yeah, the rabbit hole.
trail.
Hmm.
but uh, but yeah, but I mean, but and if, again, guys, if you do not have not ever seen any of his videos, we want to get him. He is so close to 71,000. I mean, it's not even funny. Like right now, we've got over 500 people watching right now. If all 500 people go to his channel and hit that subscribe button, he's easily going to be
Oh
pretty.
yeah, like I think I need less than 100 to get
Yeah,
to
you're like
71,000.
at
Yeah,
70.9 is what
yeah,
I checked
yeah,
earlier today. I mean, if we just get like one fifth, 100 of y'all just to go over there and subscribe, let's push him up over
Yeah.
And so I mean, but uh, but that's one thing that I've really enjoyed about your channel is you give the you, you give enough information. You're not overbearing with what you're trying to do, and
Yeah,
then and you're straight to the point. And but you also you'll take that time of actually kind of explaining about the bait, what
yeah.
it does, and so I mean I've thoroughly enjoyed watching your channel grow, and and
Thank you.
I've seen you, what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, at the Southeast Tennessee Expo,
Yep, yep.
and I don't get like fanboy or whatever, but I was like, I was so giddy, and I came up and I talked to you then, and I've seen you there a couple times, but we actually sat and talked more at ICAST this year,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so, but because I've watched the progress over the time period, and I thoroughly enjoyed it,
Man,
and
I appreciate that.
so, but
That's I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like I've been a little salty today. Like it's been a like this, and I don't even want to get into it. We can talk about it a little bit, but you know, I'll be honest with you. I am working my hardest to
yeah,
try and do this for a living. And I'm literally that close. Like I hope I'm born
well,
April the 9th, and if everything works out right, my sponsorships, the ones that are with me now, stay with me, and I pick up one or two small ones. Come April, I'll be able to live the dream of
That's
next
awesome.
year.
well.
And
Speaking of that, not cutting you off, we'll kind
no,
of keep
no,
on going after that.
yeah,
We want to talk to you after this, though.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but so go on. All right, so
But
April 9th is
but
your
it,
birthday,
it
and you're
it's
wanting.
it's been I'm not in the fishing industry. I mean, I'm not a guide. I just love fishing, and
Yeah,
I'm a horrible tournament angler because I like to tinker. And
yeah,
then when you're fishing tournaments, you're not out
right.
there going, "Well, these fish are biting this. Let me pick this up. Let me try this. Let me try that." I'm a guy that just likes to throw 20 baits at
Yeah,
fish that I know I could probably put 20 pounds in the boat if I just stick with that one bait that they're biting, right? But I
yeah,
like to see. I like to see and try
yeah.
things.
Now,
And
how has forward facing sonar? Because I know you got it on the boat.
I love it, man. I'm just gonna be honest.
How has that helped that progress to where you're like, all right, I know they're coming after this. Does it make you switch sooner, different baits because you're seeing them maybe trail it, or
It does. It does. I'll tell you. Oh man, you're gonna make me talk about this, ain't you? we we so so if you watch a lot of my stuff during the summertime, you'll see like I mean, well before I ever got forward facing sonar, I'm out over deep water throwing top waters. I'm over 25, 35, 55, 150 feet and catching bass on top waters in these clear lakes.
yeah,
Well, that was something that I totally by accident discovered. Well, not by accident. I mean, I had the thought laying in bed one night, but being on YouTube, one of the things that you do have to deal with, and I don't mean, look, I want people to go catch fish. That's why I'm doing this. But sometimes there's a couple of spots that because you've got to put content out. I've got friends like Kyle Welcher and Brandon Card, and I talk to those guys, and they talk about the pressure of being out there competing. Well, I there's a lot of pressure. Like I want to show my fans, show my subscribers stuff, but people will see where you're at, and
yeah,
they'll go out there and they'll throw those baits, and those fish get so conditioned to it early that you kind of to catch those same fish, you got to kind of stay ahead of the curve.
right,
So, you know, I'm sitting there one night. I've been catching them real good on underspins and on swim baits, 5 and 6 inch swim baits, because they suspend up this time of year. So in clear water, those bass will suspend up, and those shad will pull off around January, and they get out there and they use the top of that water to push those bass up
yeah,
because they're sight feeders. Just like you hear in that northern swing, Those smallmouth, well, those largemouth do the same exact thing. Now the difference is you're not aiming, and this is the key to this pattern. Oh God, I don't want to tell it. But the key to this pattern when it comes to largemouth is you got to find groups. It's just like ledge fishing. It's no different than on the bottom. The more fish, the more competition you have, the more likely you're going to get bit, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. If you're out there, I call them onesie twosies. Everybody I've ever took out to show this, especially now on the live scope, they'll be out there. I see a little ball of shad, and there'll be one bass under it. That bass has got no competition. He's got a smorgasbord right there in front of him. Why would he bite something that was different?
Yeah.
There's two bass. No. Now once you get into three, if they're grouped tight together, you can get one to bite.
Yeah.
But once you find that group and you see them and they look like a bunch of little tic tacs and there's about 20, 30, 40, 100 of them and they're just cruising in a wolf pack, get that top water. It's time to have a good time. Because, and a lot of times, water clarity matters. I really think that most of the time it's going to be in your really clear lakes, your lakes that are 5 feet or more. It happens, I will say this, it happens on Douglas, it happens on Norris, these lakes up here. I'll bet you money on some of the flats. It probably happens on Watts Bar and some of those lakes as the summer goes and the water clears up. You guys know how it is. You don't get a lot of rain. Well, that's a huge key, man. So, I'll get out there, and that's kind of what's happened. I've fished for that forever. And on these highlands reservoirs, what you want to do is you want to narrow down the area that you're fishing. So you want to get up in these creek arms because everybody's like, go to the main lake, go to the main lake, go to the main lake. First half of the creek, as long as there's water on it year round, and areas where the shad spawn. That'll be the key to that area. And if you've ever seen bass that in the summer, there's this one area on your home lake where bass will just start busting around June, July, first thing in the morning. That's your money spot right there.
Yeah.
So,
Now, when you're looking for creeks to go back in, are you looking for creeks that typically are going to have moving water? Is that your more prolific creeks, or could you catch them out of creeks that really are still or
I,
so-called stagnant but just not moving
yeah,
water?
ditches or
Yeah.
drains, bigger ones, bigger ones. I
Yeah.
think you have to have, I think you have to have three things. You have to have areas where the shad are going to spawn because they're going to stay there. So I like creek channel swings with a little bit of rocky bluff to it where they're going to spawn. You got to have air. You got to have bass spawning areas nearby too. Whether that be a couple of little ditches, smaller creeks, a little bay, and you got to have water on it year round. So up here where I'm at, if I look at Google Maps and they drop it and it's dry, no, because bass aren't going to live there. So you want those three things: deep water, access to deep water, and a lot of times it's going to mean those channel swings to that point, and that's what they'll do. They'll get out there, they'll shadow come up, they'll spawn. You know as well as I do when the bass come off the beds, they go out, they get on those deeper structures. Once they move out to the ledges,
Yeah.
and then they slowly come up and they'll suspend, and then once those shad come out. Now I've never seen this on the Tennessee River lakes before, but they're a little more dirty, a little more current driven. So you're looking at those lakes that are, like I said, those probably a little more highland reservoirs
Island
where it's,
reservoirs, yeah.
yeah.
Now you're talking about Google Earth. How much do you actually utilize Google Earth to find areas and find locations?
All the time. Now I'll use Google Earth on my phone, but the better one, and it's also free, is of course I think they call it Google Earth Pro.
Right.
That's on the PC because you can go back in time and you
Right.
can see times when they've lowered that lake and be able to find things like brush and rock and
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I've actually gone uh, to like go to fish a newer lake and actually found like where this sandbar came out, but somebody
yes,
had stacked about like five big old pallets on it,
yep, yep,
and uh, I guess they wasn't expecting the water to drop down that far, is what it done. But you could see the tops of the pallets, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's a spot. So, but we actually got a question, uh, and it says, "What is the best way to catch bass suspended?" Which you kind of talked about it a little bit. 20 to 25 feet during the fall.
During the fall, listen. Now again, it depends on water clarity, right? If they're suspended out there 25 feet, and you've got like the lake I've been fishing, it's actually a lake in Virginia right now, and it's 15-foot visibility, and they'll suspend right below it, that 20 foot. You wouldn't believe if you can make a far enough cast. Now, like I said, forward facing sonar is great, uh, because you can really pay attention to how they're reacting to it. But for me, it's going to start with an underspin if you don't have it. If you don't have it, it's going to be an underspin, a spy bait, a bigger swim bait, because I think you're going to get those bites. So, and you'll just fan cast, count it down, learn to count that down. And a trick I always use, if you got a 7 foot rod, just swirl that thing around to imitate the bait hitting the water. Because at first, when that bait hits water, it's going to speed a little bit, and then you let 7 foot out, you slap it on the water, and then you just go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Then you'll know your fall rate. Once it gets to 7 foot, you know it's going to take 5 seconds to get to 7 foot, and you count it down, stop it a little above them, and you just play with that. That's a good way. Top water, if you ever pay attention to the top water, when I'm throwing it, I am not moving it fast, especially if it's largemouth. Largemouth are like me. They're fat, they're slow, and if they're down there in 20, 25 foot and you've got 15 foot viz, you want that bait. That's why I love a head and spook. A head and spook one knocker. It's not overly noisy in clear water. It's got that one that kunk, kunk, and it's got that smooth nose, right? That smooth nose, if you tie a loop knot to it, allows that bait to almost do a 180. It's almost like a very wide glide. And so when you use that, you want it to hit that apex, boo, boo, boo. Because what happens is, smallmouth, you want to go twitch, 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 stop, twitch, 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 stop. But largemouth hits when they're deeper. You want that wide glide, and what ends up happening is if you run it across their head too fast, they'll come up and they'll be like, "No, that truck's moving too fast." They'll go right back down. And I learned this without live scope. This was like I said, I was throwing that underspin and that swim bait. And I had one bite. And I knew a bunch of people had been up there throwing it on that spot, and I was like, maybe this will work. It kind of come to me that night, and I tied that loop knot, and I was really working it slow. Three back-to-back 4 pounders in that spot from immediately after I did it, and I think topwater works so well because even in the slickest of calm in that clear water, they're sight feeders. They're going to investigate it. So if it's down in the water, they can get a better look. If it's on top of the water, that just the movement of that bait breaks that up enough to where they ain't got hands, so they got to stick their face to it, see what it is, you know.
And if you're like me, it don't matter if you how many treble hooks on that thing. They're still gonna smack that sucker and still get away.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It took me a minute, but yeah, that's probably my favorite bite. I
Yeah.
probably people probably get sick of seeing me do it, but gosh, that's my favorite bite in the
Well,
world.
and which to kind of stay on the top water, I thoroughly enjoyed that pop R video that
Oh
you done.
gosh,
That was
the
yeah,
prank when
yeah,
they're missing, and that's the two I keep on the deck of my boat.
yeah.
And I love. Listen, I got a whole bunch of Labino Ricos, and I love them. I don't think there's anything like them. But when I discovered uh, that prank, and you can take it, and gosh, you just have to see. If you haven't seen that video, just look at the wiggle action. I got a short where I show the wiggle action better. But if they're just trailing it, you can just take and reel it real slow, and gosh, it's got a wide. And sometimes that just drives them mad. So you can pop it. Now it's where it's got a lip. There's a little bit of a learning curve because I've never been one that likes a bloop, right? I like just a spit. So you got to kind of come
Yeah.
up with it. You got to go, and then you stop it. And guys, I'm telling you, you want to take top water to the next level.
Oh,
If you
that's
can
it.
if you
That,
can watch it on forward facing sonar, oh my God. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing 20 bass be 20 foot deep, and then you go spit, and they just all go whoosh, and you're just like, oh my God, here they come. You will miss the first 10 you ever see do that.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so I want to talk about this video you done yesterday.
Yeah.
So, guys, he put out a video about the free rig. I've heard about the free rig, brother, but up until I seen the video, I really did not know exactly how it looked, how to fish it, what to fish it around. So if you're wanting to try something else that's going to be it, and it can be a finesse rig, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
But it
That's how
also
most people fish it.
right,
Leave it
but
to me to screw that up.
but you put, I mean, the thought that you could tell that you because you I noticed like you don't want to be you want to have something a little bit different than everybody else on the baits, and
Yeah,
that's the one thing. Like with your modifications and stuff that you have done on your videos, that it so watching that video when I seen it because I've heard about it and I was like I want to learn see what it is, and then when you posted that I was so excited because I'm like I'm actually gonna get to learn because you break it down so well and talk
yeah.
about it and
Well,
watch
thank you
what
again.
it does.
Listen, can I come here every week? I feel so appreciated right now.
Man, I'm just, but I mean, like, uh,
But this is
kind
the
of get,
this is why I do it right here.
yeah,
Hearing your excitement over it and knowing that people go out and catch fish,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I mean, yes, I'm trying to do it for a living, but I'm trying to do it for a living so that I can get out there and learn more and show people more, because I'm just so
yeah.
hungry for fishing
Yeah.
knowledge.
Mike
I
Sawyer
love it,
said
man.
that was a good video.
Thank
So,
you, thank you.
uh, but yeah, like my thing that I've like and this and I might just be just because I just love different baits and stuff like that. I love to
I'm the
learn about
same.
fishing. My one of my favorite videos, like how you do your videos, is when you nose up that bank or the boat to the bank and you just sit on the deck and you just
Yeah,
talk. That
yeah,
right there, I mean, because sometimes you do go down some rabbit holes, but that's the funny part about it.
yeah,
But I mean, but you're learning, and to me, I mean, that actually it shows your viewers that you're caring enough that hey, I'm not just sitting out on I'm out on the water, but I'm not just sitting out in open water. It's
yeah,
actually like I took the time enough to nose my boat up to where
yeah,
I can sit and talk, and then having that around you. I mean, people know that you're out on the boat and stuff like
yeah,
that. But that's my one of my favorite things of watching your videos is that you're sitting on the deck of the boat and you're just talking about the baits and stuff. So,
yeah.
but and we're not here trying to pet no ego
No,
or
I
anything like
know,
that.
I know. Listen,
But
I ain't gonna lie to it. I kind of need a little bit of ego petting here lately. It,
right,
it gets stressful.
it
I
does.
mean, and you want to give everybody the best, and then sometimes you get maybe one or two guys that are like
Yeah,
trolls,
yeah.
and
Well,
I'm one of those guys, man. I just want to make everybody happy, and I want to teach people stuff, and you know but I tell you, man, the fishing industry right now, and a lot of people, I just don't understand why we can't just fish the way we want and everybody be cool with it.
yeah,
I just don't get it. Why is it got to be? I had a guy. He is another YouTuber, and I'm not going to mention him, but he actually literally looked at me and was like, forward facing sonar. What was it? He said, forward facing sonar is cheating. I think it should be outlawed. And I went to his YouTube channel just to look. The dude fishes from the bank. It'd be like me looking at him going, well, I think they should outlaw waders because you can get off the bank. I mean, you got no dog in the race, bro. I mean, I get it. Listen, and I think I hate to go down this rabbit hole, but I think the argument truly isn't about forward facing sonar, and it's more about how pricey the industry is getting as a whole.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
that's
And
what it is.
I'm fixing to drop 3 grand on to get a new units and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and to get
yeah,
forward facing sonar on my boat. Actually, dropping the boat off Monday, and so I'm going to be part of that crew that people were saying, that's cheating and all. But
yeah.
and how
Listen,
I look at it,
I dropped 10 grand to put sonars on that new Camus.
oh yeah, but
So I mean, and I didn't. I pay. That came out of my pocket. There was nobody who let me borrow it.
right. I
So
mean, but how? Like what I've noticed, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong. Um, Before forward facing sonar, like everybody would beat the bank. So the fish have learned, and so that's when you really seen more of
yeah.
them pulling off. Well,
Well,
now we kind of
yeah,
got the upper hand on it, and now I've started seeing more fish move back up
yeah.
shallow
Well,
to it.
now and you, especially in the area where you guys are, you guys know for a fact. When I first started YouTube, I was putting out videos on down and side imaging and 2D, and uh, I was one of the first to ever do it. I was the very first on YouTube to put a settings video out to that literally because guys were so secretive
Yeah,
of their settings on their unit. I was the first to put settings for my unit. And, this is not me hopefully sounding very pompous, but my day job and the reason I'm called BassGeek is because I'm a network engineer. I'm a computer geek,
yeah,
on the enterprise level. I know how to take these things apart and work on them. I understand how they work probably better than any pro that's out there because I understand what's in them
right,
and how those things communicate and work and the protocols and the parts and pieces. It's just I know that. And
right,
so because I'm a geek, I love I mean, surprise, surprise, I'm going to love electronics, right?
yeah,
But you know, but those were back in the day, and now before forward facing sonar come out, so many people are off the banks. Even
yeah.
before forward facing sonar, and so
You
there has been a huge shift in the dynamic even before forward facing sonar.
yeah. And I mean, you go on Chickamauga, which you've been on, Chick,
Oh yeah,
and that's, I mean, from right after spawn or after that first wave of spawning come
about
through,
about the end of
then
May till
you see everybody. I
yeah,
mean, it's just
lined
looks
up.
like it's just lined up along
Yeah,
the ledges.
yeah. That's why you don't see me doing videos down there. So I'm just be honest with you.
Yeah, but
Uh,
but
but
yeah,
graphs are good, and I always tell people, fish. This stuff don't come overnight. All this stuff back here. I mean, I've been doing this. I don't even want to think about. It's 30 something years, and I got bags of stuff over here. It's 30 years old. I mean, you accumulate this stuff. It's not. It don't happen overnight, and
yeah,
don't beat yourself up or think you need to keep up with the Joneses or the
no,
geeks or the deck talk guys. Just go
right,
out there and do the best that you can do, and I always do. I always say this. I'm always like, graphs are better for us weekend warriors because we're not on the lake every single day, five
yeah,
and 6 days a week. And when we go out there, we want to catch, not fish.
yeah,
And if you learn a little bit about your electronics, even during the spring, you can get tipped off on good areas, even if you're not seeing fish. I
right.
mean, I started with a little eagle and a flasher, and I mean, that's what I was learning on way back in the day.
Probably a lot of the younger generation today doesn't even know what a flasher is.
Oh yeah, man. Unless you're up north and you know what ice fishing is. That's
Oh yeah,
about it.
they do that for ice fishing too.
Yeah.
Now, now, if there's like, let's say, what is one thing that you would tell somebody that is wanting to get into being a YouTuber?
um, the biggest thing about being a YouTuber is, you know, you always say don't get into it because you want to be famous and fish for a living and make $1 million. Because it really is. It, if I were to tell you that when I first started, I didn't have that thought. I wouldn't like, oh man, wow, this could turn into something big. But it's the same sort of way when you buy a lottery ticket. You
Yeah,
go, I could win $1 billion, but you probably ain't. I hate to tell
right.
you.
Like,
Uh,
You
you know
don't
what?
do it to get rich.
Yeah,
exactly.
and I'll add one thing to that too. Is and I've told a lot of kids this in the past with a lot of questions. Whether you want to start a fishing YouTube channel, whether you want to start fishing club tournaments and try
Yeah.
to progress, on up the ladder with tournament fishing. If your goal is to eventually be able to do it for a living, man, do it not for the money, not for the fame,
Yes.
not because you want to get yourself out there and look good. Do it because you love fishing.
Yeah,
If,
exactly.
if you love doing what you and here's the thing too. I'll say, we're a fishing podcast. We're an outdoors podcast. We talk a lot of relate that, man.
Yeah.
Whether no matter what you do, no matter what you do in life, no
Yeah.
matter what your job is, it doesn't need to be fishing. Love what you do. 'Cause if you get up in the morning and go to work and you don't enjoy going to work, you need to find something else to do.
Yeah.
Enjoy life. But if your goal is to make a living fishing, man, before you even think about how much money you're going to make in the future doing,
Yes.
you need to
Yes.
like yourself, man. I mean, we can see just from your videos, you have the passion. You have
Yeah,
the passion and the joy for the sport. And if you can make a living doing that, great. But you enjoy
Yeah.
what you're doing, and it shows in your videos.
That's and that is the biggest key. I got into doing this because I wanted to help guys like me that didn't have somebody that had a big bass boat and didn't get to go out to these big lakes, and they were fishing from a 10 boat, or they were fishing from this, or they were fishing from the bank. I always try to throw in tips, to the guys. Hey, this will work from the bank, or this will work. I've been doing this well before I had forward facing sonar. Yes, it takes a little more work, but uh, it's that key term, time on the water, right? Time. Everything takes time. Don't be impatient. Don't get frustrated. You know, the learning is the part of bass fishing that I think anybody that's passionate about it really loves.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And that's like
for
what we
me,
were talking about earlier. Like, if you get to the point to where you don't care to want to learn anything else, you just
yeah,
need to get out.
yeah.
But I do have a question. Jason says you said something about the free rig. What is a free rig?
Okay, so a free rig is it is a specially designed weight. There's a lot of companies that make them. I have to give my boy Angler Tungsten. He's right down the road in around. I'll say around Rogersville on Cherokee Lake. Uh, he makes them. He makes the finesse and he makes the heavies. But the key to it is there is a polished stainless steel ring at the top of this kind of teardrop, or the smaller ones, they're just the cylinders, like the cylinder drop shot weights. And the thing about it is, the key to it is that polished steel ring. I've had a lot of people like, well, can't we use this? Can't we? Well, you can always, but there's always things that are designed specifically for it. There's always workarounds, but when things are designed specifically for it, they work a little better, and that's why I like that little head, that ring. So what you do, you can kind of think about it as a kind of a almost like a free Carolina rig. If a Carolina rig and a drop shot had a baby, you
Yeah,
know, and so you put your bait on the hook. Of course, you put that weight on, and it's free. The weight free slides. And so, what I love about it is that it's really, to me, it's a target bait. It's a target bait. So it's not something I'm gonna drag around a whole lot, which you can, but it's something that I like to throw to something like you guys down on the ledges and stuff like that. It's great down there. You put that heavier, that 3/4 ounce weight on it, let it drop, because as it drops, that weight will outrun the bait, and you'll get a nice long, you know, leader. And what I like to do is I like to use a Lastech, stuff like Nico Baits and Z Man, and I think uh, I think Strike King makes some. There's several out there.
Yeah.
You can use no salt baits too. Standard plastic will float, no matter what Z Man tells you. It will, but it can't have any salt in it. you know, and but the more buoyant baits are the kind of elastic stuff. And
Yeah.
so when you drop it down, it'll have a long leader. And I always use just a touch heavier weight than what you would normally use, like on a drop shot or a shaky head or a Texas rig, so you can get that separation. And then you can just literally let it sit there. But the difference between it and a drop shot, and I get this a lot, well, it's just an upside down drop shot. But the difference between it and a drop shot is that you can take your rod and you can just snap it back just a little bit, and that bait will get a reaction bite because it'll go down fast, hit that weight, and then slowly bounce back up and sit there again. Where
That's
a
what you
drop,
want a floating one.
yeah, yeah, but a drop shot, what happens there? If you drop your rod, it'll you know ease down. But that you can set it there, and you can go snap, and it'll go pop, snap, pop, and it looks like something just really coming down, pecking on the bottom. And when it floats back up in those basses' face, they can't stand it, man. They'll just pick it up, and you'll see it. You'll feel it just kind of swimming off, and then you just whack them.
Yeah, and it's not something. It's not a bait that you're going to cover
No,
a lot of
it's a
ground. It's all
target
just yeah,
driven bait to me.
yeah. So
Vertical, dropping it down beside something vertical is a great one.
yeah,
Like we said, dock pilings, uh, you know, standing timber. If you've got some stumps, oh, it's great around stumps.
mhm,
Working around, that outside edge. You can drop it right down in a brush pile. I don't know that I'd want to drop it down into like a heavy brush pile, but you can drop it right down into some of your brush piles. But I wouldn't drag it through. I'd pop it, and then I'd just hop it back
straight
up
up.
and get it out of there. After you kind of reel down to it, then bring it back up, because if you want to get that bait down tight to that weight if you're putting it in a lot of brush.
Right. Now, what would you say is your top three baits? Since we're in September, let's do top three baits for September/fall time.
I would say I would say three would be an underspin or a swim bait. You know, um, I would say two right now is going to be a minnow bait. And basically, what I mean by that is like a Demiki style, ball head, but casting it out there and
Yeah.
tight lining it. And number one's going to be a walking bait all day. Gosh, I love them.
Now, is there a time period to where you will not throw a top water?
We'll get. It's funny because on South Holston, I have caught them on topwater poppers a week to 2 weeks after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think, like, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, I've seen you like bundled up and
Yes.
like where it's cold and you're
Yes.
still throwing it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's
Those
too
smallmouth,
cold.
man, they're crazy. They're
Yeah, I'm
crazy.
like,
They're
it's too
crazy.
cold. And he's
Now
over
the bigger ones tend to leave at that point. So most of the time, you're not going to win a tournament by doing it.
there.
But if I'm out there for fun fishing,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
they're 12 inches, and I can throw a top water, I'm throwing the top water. We're
I
gonna
tell
catch
you,
100 of them 12s.
I tell you what. When you ask me that question, as far as when do I like to throw top water most of the time, what time of the year? The better question is to get a little bit more narrowed down answer is when don't I want to throw top
Yeah.
water?
Yeah.
You know,
He
If there,
always has that
12
zero
months,
spook on
12 months out of the year, I am going to have a spook. Now, I might not throw it during the day, but if
yes.
the situation arises that I want to pick up that spook, I don't care if it's January, February,
Yeah.
December, May, that spook's going to be right there next to my feet.
Listen, and right now, like
I,
right now, I got to throw a buzz bait in there too. I mean, we just throw the whole top water.
oh, yeah.
Frog. Right now is the time of
Oh,
year you
yeah.
want to throw a frog, a popper, a
Oh
buzz
man.
bait. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
if it's you got to throw it all right now.
But I'm with you on that walking bait, man. There's
Yeah.
no better there is no better adrenaline pumping bite. Well, I'll throw a frog into the mix too.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
no better adrenaline pumping bite than when you see a 6 or 7 pound bass crush, and I
Yeah.
mean crush, and they will crush a spook or a frog.
Yeah.
We were. I took a buddy out and was showing him a little bit about the forward facing sonar the other day. It's a short, and I caught a 4 pound smallmouth, and man, that thing was about 15 foot down, and it was right in this ball of shad, and it was a onesie. Like most time I wouldn't do it, but he was feeding hard on shad, and I seen him come out, and I threw it right on his head, and I went boosh boosh, and I mean you can see in the video that fish was straight up in the air. He looked like a rocket coming out of that, and I was like, oh my god, what was that? He swallowed it like it took me forever. It was all down in his gullet. I mean, I was like, he's bleeding all over my boat. I got to get him back in the water. But I mean, I felt bad. But I mean, I did. I got him unhooked, and he swam off like he was, a
Yeah.
ticked off smallmouth, like always.
So let's talk. Let's kind of get away from the top water
Yeah, yeah.
and let's go deep.
Oh yeah.
What about a flutter spoon?
Oh man.
And because I know that's about time for it to really start picking up, especially down here. It
Yeah.
is. Um, so now, what? How big of
You're
a flutter
dragging all my
spoon?
secrets out, ain't you?
I'm just kind of just going off of what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
but uh, so how? Because there's different size flutter spoons and stuff like that. We'll throw like the smaller flutter spoons,
Mm-hmm.
especially up by on Nickajack by the dam. We'll throw. Um, so how small do you like to throw them? To how big of a flutter spoon do you like to throw?
Well, I'm a guy that even in clear water, I believe big baits get big bites.
Yeah,
And now if they're feeding on shad like right now, Wheeler on Gunnersville was throwing the little, the bigger, the 4 inch, because he was around a lot of bigger gizzard shad and all that. You do have to match the hatch. I've been throwing a spoon a lot on the Clearwater lakes, but I've been throwing the Nichols 4 and 5 inch flutter spoons. Um, Even with the Demiki, the tight line, I'm just going to call them minnow baits, right?
right.
The minnow baits at the beginning of the year, I was throwing 4 inches, and as we've got into where those shad fry begin to join the crowd, they won't touch them. So because in those clear water lakes, there's some gizzard shad up there, but it's predominantly thread fin. So,
Yeah,
3 inch, 4 inch variety. But when it comes to flutter spoons, it really is match the hatch. I know like Douglas is one of my favorite lakes, and I will almost always pick up the 8 inch, Ben Parker mag on that lake, because there's such a good, um, you know, there's so many gizzard shad on that lake. Now later in the year, as we get into the fall, I'll start to downsize a little bit. But a lot of that is going to depend on what I'm seeing on my graph. If I'm seeing balls of shad on my down and side imaging that are clouds or they're dots, and then you know how those gizzard shad love to get up on those flats during the fall too.
Yeah.
And
And I was going to say, Hank, before we get on too far with the subject, explain to everybody now, like throw an 8-inch flutter spoon. Uh, if you throw an 8-inch flutter spoon all day long, especially like a lot of your tournament
yeah,
angles, when you throw them on the ledge, explain, because if you don't throw a flutter spoon, especially the bigger flutter spoons with the right equipment, you're gonna wear your. I don't care how big of a dude you are, you're gonna wear
yeah,
your out by the end of the day. So,
yeah.
kind of explain to the viewers what type of setup you use to throw them, because if you're not using the right tools, it's gonna wear your ass out.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, a lot of times, number one, you want a reel that's got a good spool capacity. Not too big, but it needs to be one of and I like to use, the upper limits, a 7, something like that. I'm not real big on the 8s and 9s because when it comes to gear ratio, there's a balance between, torque and speed, and the higher you get, the less torque they have. That's why you see a lot of guys in grass, they're using those 8s and 9s and they're having to reel down, reel down. Where if you're using the right speed, a 7.1, a 7.5, you can winch them out,
Yeah.
hence the Abu Garcia winch, if y'all remember that.
Mhm.
Uh, but flutter spoons, the rod I'm using right now, I'm using TFO rods right now, and I think it is one of their actual big swim bait rods. But it's got a moderate fast tip. So, it's great for those treble hooks. So it's good. I think it's like an extra heavy for those big ones, but it's got that soft tip. So you got plenty of backbone. You can sling it out there. It's going to load good, and then when you jerk it, it's got a long butt handle. And so I'm real bad about going ahead and taking my hand off the reel and I'll, snap it real good and then, feel it. You know, uh, but that's the key. I think I'm using Lou's Super Duties on my bigger stuff right now because I'm just not a big fan. Even for the swim baits, like the big giant, old school round bait casters and stuff.
Ambassadors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got some right there.
But I like that just a little bit softer tip. You don't want it too soft
Yeah.
because you are talking about huge treble hooks on these
Yeah.
things.
Now,
So
uh, yeah, because I seen a video that you done, and the reason why I asked about it because one of the videos and how I like when I first kind of glimpsed at it, it had a picture of the big old flutter spoon.
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, Hank's throwing like a prop off a plane." How big that's
and I'll throw it in clear water, but I'll tell you, my key in clear water is, and I'm not sponsored by this company at all, Nichols or anybody, but those crank wraps, man. You want to throw a big flutter spoon or a spoon in clear water. Those crank wraps, they got them in gizzard shad, they got them in baby striper, and man, they're money. They're money.
yeah,
I've got even on that 6-inch right now, and I caught a ton of them out there, schooling. And I'll tell you something else, something that's awesome. So when you get out there, whether you're on the ledge and they're down on the bottom, or they're suspended up, throw that flutter spoon out there because a lot of times, even if they don't hit it, if they don't take it, you'll get them darting, you'll get them excited,
Get
and
them
then
fired up.
come back. Yeah, then come back with that underspin or that smaller swim bait or something like that because they may not eat it all the time, but you get them fired up. Now that's one thing I've really been able to hone in on with that forward facing sonar, throwing that little 6-inch out there and just watching them how they react as it's coming up, they love that fall, man. They love that fall. Always let it fall between them and just short snaps so it's falling more than it's popping up. But even if they don't bite, you can tell when that group when they're fired up. You know, when they're fired up, a lot of times that's when you can come back through with something else a little more subtle and catch
Yeah.
them.
Now that's not the question I was going to ask you. When you're working a flutter spoon, are you one that, or does it really just depend on the day and how the fish are eating that day? Do you rip it really hard, or are you a little bit more gingerly with your rip? Because I know you could do it both ways and get bit, but a
Yeah,
lot of times it depends on how they want the bait that day.
and you're right. It really depends. And even there's been times when I've been out, and one of the ways that I like to throw it is actually cast it out, let it fall on semi slack line. You always want to be watching that line. If it jumps, you want to swing away. But sometimes I'll literally just crank it 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
and then let it kind of flutter. And literally, I've had them just hit it, just pow, 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 and then follow up with swim bait, and
Yeah.
they'll actually
Yeah.
commit to that. So it is, and a flutter spoon to me, it's the same whether it's on the bottom or whether it's on the top. Uh, I will change the retrieves. I'll slowly lift, I'll rip, and I'll even uh, stroke it. So you leave a little bit of slack and you pop
Yeah.
pop, and then I'll give it that reel, get it coming through horizontally, and see what they kind of how they react to it. And like I said, even if you don't have forward facing sonar, you'll tell they'll hit it, they'll
Yeah.
swing at it.
And you just said that about kind of changing your retrieve, changing the way you work it until you kind of see how they. That also actually, I mean, for all of our viewers, that's actually a good tip because you basically use that same analogy what you just said in the flutter spoon with any bait you're working for that matter.
Yes, yes,
Until you actually find out how they want to eat whatever you're throwing at them, kind of change up a little bit until you find out how they want it.
yeah,
And once you get bit, once you get bit a second time doing it that same way, remember up here, you don't know how many times, especially when I used to fish like the FLW stuff or have a
hmm,
co-angler on the back of my boat. You don't know how many times I had a co-angler catch a fish, and they could not remember at all how they were winding it, how they were cranking
Yeah.
it, how that fish hit it, what they even caught the fish out of, what
yeah,
vegetation. If you and this is you're talking the next cast. So I'm
yeah,
like, keep a mental note. Up here is a
yes,
lot. Remember what
yes,
you do and how them fish are eating, and that'll help you throughout the rest of your day.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Not
Now
only
we
with
got
the spoon, but with any other bait you're using too.
we got a couple of questions. Um, Chris says, "Do you prefer to throw an underspin over a chatterbait?"
I do, because I'm in such clear water. And I will throw an underspin 90% of the time. And really, a chatterbait to me and an underspin, I'm throwing in totally different places.
Yeah.
90% of the time, I'm throwing an underspin probably in open water, over top of cover, around cover, that sort of stuff. And so 90% of the time, I'm using a uh, an open hook, right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, rarely do I ever use an underspin uh, that's weedless. Now, if I'm in or around weeds or isolated clumps of weeds, maybe, but that's when I'm going to start leaning toward that chatterbait.
Yeah.
I want to throw a chatterbait around grass,
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's like what like, and it's the difference in between like where you're fishing Highland Reservoir
yeah,
and us fishing Tennessee River or the TVA. We might throw the underspin and chatterbait in the same
yeah,
area,
yeah,
but it also kind of depends on like I'll throw a chatterbait if I'm wanting when I'm trying to find how aggressive they're going to be.
Yeah.
if because I know because I'll burn a chatterbait, and I know, all right, if I can get, even if I just get them chasing it,
Yeah.
then I'll switch to, and just even throw the edge line of a grass line, just throw in the
Yes.
same cast, and then I know, and I can come in and maybe do like a half speed on it
Yeah.
on the underspin, and see what's going on, or even kind of get really, and then kind of just give it a little pop real quick, and um that to me, on the it does make a difference in between the highland reservoir,
Oh
like what
yeah.
you do, to where we are, to where we're kind of throwing them in the same area,
Yeah.
and which I don't know where Chris is at, to where
Yeah. And vibration too. I like it in a little dirtier water. 2 foot or less. When you're out there in that 3, 4, 5, if those bass get a look at it coming and that vibration, they feel it before they'll see it, and then when they see
right,
it, you're just giving them time to look at it.
right,
And so for me, water conditions matter. Baits are tools. Right place, right time for everything.
yeah. Now
You
see,
know.
like, and I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, cause sometimes of the year they don't want that vibration
No.
or as much as vibration, so that underspin
Yes.
is great. And
Yes.
then, especially in clear water, all that blade you're getting a little bit of vibration. Most of the
Yeah.
vibration on that underspin is going to come off the tail of the plastic that you have
Yeah,
on.
that's right. And then
But
the other thing is it's even more subtle really than a spinner bait. Because that bait, that solid body blade is blocking a lot of the light
yeah,
on that underspin. So you're not
so
getting as
just giving a
much,
little flash. Yeah,
yeah, you're not getting nearly as much flash as you are out of a spinner bait.
yeah,
So
yeah. So Mike says, on your spook, what pound line are you using, and what rod are you using?
I'm using I'm a mono guy because I'm in clear water, right? I'm a mono guy. So I'm using 14-pound test mono, and about any. There's 100 great monofilament companies out there. They've
Yeah,
been making that long enough. They got it. You can use Berkeley. You can use who else? A Trilene.
Eileen,
I
yeah,
think Strike King makes some good one now. There's 20 different. Don't go to Walmart and pick up the cheap brand. You'll lose a
no,
spook that way. But you know, um, and generally just to be honest with you, just a medium heavy fast or a medium heavy mod fast on a full size spook. That one knocker is
right,
what we're talking about now. Spook Junior, definitely if you're going to go medium heavy, I tend to lean a little toward the medium fast for the Spook Juniors and the
yeah.
smaller baits. But
Yeah, because I tend to kind of go towards when I have the smaller ones, I go more towards like my crankbait rod,
yeah,
to where, because
yes,
I want it to be able to
yeah,
give that little flex a little bit
because you
more.
want to you want to fight them,
Yeah,
uh, and that's one of the big things, and one of the things now I'm a big like walking baits are made so differently, and I don't know if I got any out, but um, you know, like you'll hardly ever see me throw a a spook in choppy, dirty water.
yeah,
And the reason why is because something like, which, and it's hard to find what I call a smooth nose cigar, true old school
yeah,
cigar style walking bait. To me, I think those shine in that clear, calm water.
yeah,
You know, for me, I like to throw stuff like the sexy dog, and there's 100 different variants of that, what I call a snub nose,
yeah,
and they push water. Now, there's no need to tie. You'll never get a wide walk out of that bait, but that bait's made to push and be a nice tight wiggle
yeah,
because they've got a snub nose. Now, if you're really wanting to stay in one spot, that's when we come to our pencil poppers and our shower blows and our cane walkers and that sort of stuff. You get a little bit of chop, a little bit of cloud, raining. Oh my God, there's nothing better in the world than a cane walker when it starts just excuse my language, piss pouring down. You get that cane walker and just set it over them and pop, pop, because
Yeah.
it just rests on its rear end. It don't really walk; it just kind of pivots.
Right. As I say, that's what I was gonna say. It almost kind of looks like it has like a limp type deal
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
not really, it's not really doing anything
yeah,
besides just kind of just. You're right. Just kind of just pivoting on it is the best way to explain it.
yeah.
I do want to talk about this because we kind of hit on it a little bit about when we was talking about trying if somebody wanted to try to have a YouTube channel and stuff.
Oh yeah,
But I want to talk because we talked about because you don't have to have the fancy stuff.
yeah. You look. I
But
started with a GoPro. No, a cheap GoPro. Audio
yeah,
was awful. And my phone. I mean,
yeah.
guys, your
Well,
phones. They make.
you have a
Yeah,
video out that I think your wife was out with you on that when you done the
yeah.
video
She might have
talking
been.
about
Yeah,
how like what you have and what you did. I mean, it's like I'm recording it on my phone right
yeah,
now,
and still do to
and
this
so
day, right
but
here.
but I wanted to kind of say with the hard work that you've done because you just got a brand new boat
Yeah.
and so I want to talk about it. But you did not start out with a brand new boat.
Oh no,
You
no, no.
so
I bought my first boat, which I've owned several tin boats. And when I say tin boats, man, I don't mean fancy. I mean ain't none of them had a deck on them. I'm talking about 90% of them. I remember one day we went up to a lake and me and my brother went so far back in there. We had two batteries. We run them both out, and we was so tired of paddling. We was taking big spinner baits, casting them just to pull us down. Take a break, just take a break. But you can learn so much. Small and now back then there was no kayaks. Uh, you know if I was probably starting back then, and there was kayaks, yeah, I'd absolutely have a kayak. Now I'm old. I just now I've lost almost 50 pounds. I'm just under 300 pounds again.
yeah, awesome.
And as I always jokingly say, I'll get a kayak when I see a fat guy look comfortable in it. So, but I really would like a kayak. That's something that
Yeah,
I'd like to have. But my first boat, uh, my wife was nice enough to let me go back to college, work part time. We struggled. Thank God for my mom and dad. They bought groceries for us from time to time.
yeah,
And when I first got out, um, Watson's Marine, shout out to Watson's Marine. Uh, they were right down the road from where my first computer job was, and I wasn't making no money. Let me tell you. I mean, like this was 2004, and I might have been making $13 an hour, and driving an hour to work every day just to get experience. And the guy that owned Watson, Cheryl Watson, I come in like once a week and just drooled over this red and white Triton that was dirty as could be. And he's like, "Well, I'll tell you what, buddy." He goes, "I'll make you a deal on that. You in here every week." And he made me a deal. I mean, I stole that boat, but you know, good people. I guess they just, I say I'm blessed all the time. Things happen for reasons. At least
yeah,
you hope they do. You hope you ain't misreading the signs or just hoping you're hoping, right?
yeah,
But that was my first bass boat, and I was probably 33 years old.
yeah,
And that was 2004, and it was a '98 bass boat. So I mean, I love fishing, and I was fishing every day anyway. So that was my first, and I never thought I would own a new bass boat. Listen, I'm not gonna sit and lie to you. I mean, that boat that's sitting out there right now, if it wasn't for, I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for Kyle Welcher, who I met at an East Tennessee fishing show,
yeah. He's a good guy.
uh, he is a great guy.
Yeah,
If it wasn't for Kyle Welcher and introducing me to the guys at Camus, and them being very nice to me on price. There's no way in the world I could afford one. And again, I'm a network engineer, but uh, oh man,
But you got to think of like what's sensible or reasonable to.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
because like Norman and I were talking, and I had a dude offer me good money for my boat,
yeah,
and so I went and looked at another boat, went to my bank, and it's like, hey, this is what it's going. This boat's going to be out the door. What is my price going to be on it? And they're like, I'll just tell you right now, the interest rate on boats and stuff is through the roof.
and it's that's the one thing that really killed me because I mean I'm not gonna lie, man, I've got like 800 credit,
Right.
and even when they told me the interest rate on it, I was like, golly,
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, and I'm like, how, like, because I believe in like trying to get it paid off quick and stuff like that
yeah,
and
yeah,
doubling up payments and stuff. But the price, like they told me like
it's
we could
yeah,
push it out for like 10 years, and this is what the price is going to be. And I'm like, how in the world does somebody can afford like
yeah,
$1,700 to
yeah,
double pay? And I'm like,
yeah.
people can't do that.
No,
And
no,
that
and
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 I was
that
like,
that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. How to be perfectly honest, why there's a boom in the kayak fishing
yeah,
tournament world, and why I think the truth is why people are mad about forward facing sonar really has less to do with how people are catching fish and more about that it costs $3,000 just to get a 10 and
yeah.
and and the and the transducer and the black box to go with it.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head there because you can go out and price a brand new boat today, but and you hear people comment all the time, man, it costs 90, $100,000 for a brand new bass
Yeah.
boat today. What the deal? But here's the thing: you go price out a brand new bass boat with just the bare minimum essentials, and it's going to be one price. But once you start adding all the
Oh
stuff
yeah.
that we as anglers want to have on the boat,
Yeah. Yeah.
updated motors, all the, like you said, go buy yourself just the electronics to put on your existing boat and see how
Yeah.
much it costs. Well, now you're taking that brand new boat price. Now that's just one of
Mhm.
the many prices you're going to be adding to that boat as you're building that boat. So when people look at it, you just kind of got to realize, look at the technology we have today and how much this stuff costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that's kind of falls into why today a brand new bass boat is going to cost you 90 to 100,000
yeah,
minimums in some cases,
absolutely.
versus 12, 13 years ago you can buy a brand new off the showroom floor topped out with the best equipment for 45 and 50,000 for the same boat you buy today that you're going to be paying the better part of 100.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is just all the stuff, all the add-ons you add into it cost so much more money today than it did
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because they did.
Well, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole like that. I was
Well, it's a
just,
good conversation. It's the
Oh yeah.
state
yeah.
of
But
it's the
I was
state of
wanting to
fishing
kind
right
of
now.
because when you got that thing, I was so proud for you because I
Listen, I
know
appreciate that. That boat is
that I mean
beautiful.
because I
I
know the
mean,
hard work that you put into what you do on your YouTube channel, and like because you fished for so long in that boat to be able to and people don't like give people credit enough because all they see is, well, Hank just got a brand new
yeah,
Camus,
yeah,
and well, we see who's got the money now.
yeah,
Well, it's not really. It's not that you got the. It's not saying that you got the that
yeah,
amount of
yeah.
money. It's saying
I'm
I
in debt
worked
up
my
into my
tail
eyeballs.
off. Right. I worked my tail off to
Yeah.
be able to get to where I'm at. That's how I'm able to get this boat. So that's the reason why I wanted to highlight you having a new boat.
Well,
And
And plus,
so,
also that's kind of a good learning tool too for the younger kids out there that is just wanting to kind of start getting involved with the sport.
hmm
You don't need to have a fancy, $100,000 bass boat,
no, absolutely not.
a $60,000 truck to pull it
Yeah.
to go out and even catch what all three of us catch. I mean,
Yep.
you can catch numbers, you catch fish all day long from the bank. Yeah, here's a good example too. One of our guests we've had on, which he was actually the collegiate qualifier for the classic this year,
Yeah.
Lucas Minetti. He qualified through the college ranks to make the classic this year, and he actually qualified for the classic out of a ragged out. What was
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
70s.
70s boat with
Yeah.
No
no
units.
electronics. He had one hummingbird, little 5-inch screen, I believe, on it.
There you go.
He was able to make the classic
Yep. I
in
seen that.
college. So that just goes to show you don't need all this fancy stuff if you're a younger kid and can't afford it quite yet. Have that passion, live the dream,
Yep.
and if you live the dream and you work hard and and be a good person to the sport, be a good
Yeah.
advocate for the sport of fishing.
Yes.
Yep.
Good things are going to come to you, and you'll one day you'll like we're talking about you, Hank, with the new boat. You worked your butt off, but you started with the bare minimum,
Yep.
Oh
and
yeah.
you were able to pretty much build yourself up to a pretty darn huge following without what you have now to get to where you are. So for all the younger
Hopefully, we
guys,
got him over
viewers,
71,000.
exactly, man. You know what? Just live the
But
dream. Enjoy fishing. Enjoy the outdoors. And it doesn't matter if you have
yeah.
$100 John boat. You catch as many fish out of $100 John boat as you're going to
There you
catch
go.
out of a
Listen,
fat.
to this day, I always say that it's those guys in those white t-shirts and older than me. Those are the guys you better be worried about
I
on
tell
them
you what.
weekend rodeos.
Yeah, you know what? What's funny?
Tobacco stains down the front of their shirts. They
Yeah.
know where they're at.
I'll
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
what's funny, and this has happened a couple of different occasions on tournaments. I was actually, not the bigger tournaments, but just like your
Yeah.
club tournaments, your
Yeah.
dog fights, your shootouts, your local trail stuff. And I've seen it firsthand because I was one of the guys that got my butt kicked. But and I wasn't one of the ones kind of whispering in the background. I wasn't that person, but you hear a lot of whispers. When everybody shows up for the tournament, and again, the club fishermen, they all have the big boats.
Oh yeah.
You have somebody show up in a smaller, cheaper
Oh
boat.
yeah.
Well, it's funny to me because I sit back and just watch sometimes and listen to all the chatter you hear from different fishermen because they all have their cliques and they
Oh
all talk
yeah.
together. And
Oh
I
yeah.
listen to all that and I hear them kind of snickering about. And at the end of the day, coming back to the weigh-in, and I know a couple, for instance, that this had happened where that guy that showed up at that with that small boat
Oh yeah.
boat
I've
didn't
been
go
beat by him.
didn't go from where the tournament went out of more than a mile, and he ended up coming back and waxing everybody's tail.
Yep. Yep.
And everybody in his fancy bass boats basically 100 miles an hour as far as they could go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
we
You
had
know, it
there
there's
he
no shortcuts in bass fishing. I know electronics help you get there, but here's the truth. Here's what I've been saying about electronics. You still got to find them to see them,
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
that's what it boils down to.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry Burchard says kids with the right equipment and sponsors can compete against anyone. Bass don't know the age of the kid.
I
So,
mean, it's true to a certain extent, but I mean, I tell you what, I seen another podcast today, and it was talking about just that,
yeah.
and they were talking about, and I've been guilty of it. I've been guilty of going, look at that spoon fed snot nosed punk over there. He's got the $100,000 truck, $100,000 boat. I'm in my Triton. It looks like somebody took sandpaper down the side because I didn't know I should keep it covered all the time. And, you know, but, anybody's going to do that for their kids if they can. They're going to put them
Yeah.
out there. They're going to give them the best shot. Yeah, I mean, and this is one thing that I think one of the few and that's on a whole nother rabbit hole that I think the professional series are doing right. And it's they're building that high school to college feeder
That's the best
program
thing. Yeah.
just like every other sport is doing. Now there's growing pains with it. There's things that need to change. 300 boat fields on a lake that 200 boats stressing. That's a little ridiculous. We gotta maybe start having conferences like we do, in most other sports. where not everybody's going and fishing at the state level all the time, and you qualify. There's a lot of changes, but again, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I will say this: I I have met a lot of kids since doing this. A lot of kids that love to fish, and their parents bring them. And I will tell you what, I have yet to meet a kid in a jersey that don't call me sir, even when I tell them not to.
That's true.
And
But and the thing is what I like about it because Jerry's grandson Hunter is a he. They're down in Florida,
yeah,
um, but Hunter is a hammer. For
yeah,
He is a
he's what
hammer. Yeah.
11 or 12 years old,
Mhm.
and um, is I mean he's going. We're going to see him in the elites sometime when he gets old enough, just because.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
but I
that's
like
the changeover from us. We didn't have that.
we didn't have that.
We
We
grew
might have
up,
went to
and
school
then
more.
we started fishing. You know,
Yeah,
and of course these kids are going to be better. By the time we was 25, we had 5 years experience. By the time they're 15, they got 5 years experience on the
yeah,
water.
All
I'm
these
on
high
the
school kids
water.
coming up today are so far because of what they have
Yeah,
handed. What they have at their fingertips today
yeah,
are so far ahead of the curveball than any of the guys that are at a certain age
oh
were.
yeah,
yeah.
So,
yeah,
yeah, it's just,
So
but it's great to see. It's
yeah,
great to see that and it gives it. And here's the thing too, with it's getting a lot more younger generation involved with the outdoors and involved in
yes,
high school and involved in fishing.
and
Where back in the day, the same kids, if you put them back in the 80s, 90s, and on up to when they started the high school teams and the collegiate fishing, might
yeah,
not have ever, uh, wanted to fish, but now,
yeah,
it kind of made fishing cool in school,
yeah.
and
Well,
another thing too, it's helping give the kids something to do other than get in trouble.
yeah,
You
and
know.
that is one thing. I mean, I think we can all agree that most people that are involved in this sport, we have and share a certain set of moral values. And that's what I meant by, these kids who come up. Where do you see kids anywhere else playing any other sport that is, yes, sir, yes, sir,
yeah.
thank you, sir?
Uh, and the thing
Using,
is that I've noticed is like those kids that are growing up into that high school and fishing in those tournaments and stuff like that. It's not about me. It's not an I.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there's not any other sports, and especially in high school, that you won't have that person that is the stud running back or something
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
That he'll always say, "I look what I done.
Yeah,
I ran for 200 yards this game," and to where there's in high school, I think it really shows. It helps build with the team as a team to work together, and I think that
yeah.
does it benefits a lot.
And I've met a lot of dads who had never fished before, but their kids want to do it. Their sons and daughters want to do it. And they've came to me and they've been like, man, we appreciate you so much. We've learned so much. We watch you all the time because they want to do it. I've never done this. We went out and bought a boat, and they love it so much and they're excited about it. And and that's not about me. That's just about even getting that guy. When those kids go on, hopefully that dad is gonna start enjoying the sport.
Yeah.
And I always talk about, a lot of people, the Googans get a lot of hate.
Yeah,
I always tell people though, there's no one who has done as much as the Googans to get young kids interested in fishing.
but that's how their business took off,
It
though, is
is.
because they
And
focused in on that young
yeah.
kids, and
And the way I look at it is I always say, hey, those young kids, you guys get into fishing, love fishing, and then when you want to learn, the Googans are just growing my audience. so so I appreciate them because I'm actually teaching. But they're fun. They're the Googans are entertainers.
They
That's what
are.
they
They
do.
are. And
And
Gary, and Jerry says, I think the three of you, as well as myself, are always willing to help our young
yeah,
anglers,
yeah, absolutely.
and which I can say, which I've seen Hank at different shows and stuff like that. That he's talking to the young kids and as well as like Norman and myself. If anybody comes up, we don't care how old or how young or
Oh yeah.
whatever. We don't care if you want to talk about fishing. Like we just hit an hour and a half of just
You,
running down different rabbit holes, and
you
we can
don't
just
come
talk
talk to
about
me if you don't want to talk about fishing or if you only got 5 minutes. I'll tell you that right now.
fishing. So, but well, Norman, let's do try to wrap this up because I'm starting to smell dinner.
Uh, we came on 2 hours or 2 hours late tonight. Keep in mind, guys, all of our viewers, next week we'll be back at our regular scheduled time, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget. But yeah, coming on tonight 2 hours later kind of was pretty cool because it gave me a chance to eat. Usually, unlike Colin, I don't get a chance to eat dinner till after we're done. But I tell you what, my butt cheeks are starting to hurt a little bit right now.
Well, guys, first off, thank you very much
Hey,
for accommodating me coming on later like that, and thank all you all out there watching for coming in and coming in 2 hours normally later than what you normally do. So
but
you
we
know,
do have one last question for you.
Before
another
we do
hour,
that, before we
another
do that,
hour.
yeah, before we do that last question, let's get one more plug in for Hank the Bass Geek. Make sure you go to the Bass Geek on YouTube, and you want to go ahead and take that, Hank, and tell them how to find your channel and where your platforms are.
Yeah, guys, I'm pretty much everywhere. Like, it's either Bass Geek Fishing. Literally, if you Google Bass Geek, this ugly mug will break your screen. I
Yeah, you
promise.
guys, you gotta check him out. He has some awesome videos out there. Very impressive, man, and you'll definitely enjoy watching them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Norman, do you want to real quick before you ask that question? Um, let's see, because next week um, we have yeah, another killer guest coming on
I should.
that everybody that's in the fishing world should know who he is, and if you don't know who he is, you need to look him up. Next week, Norman, do you know who it is, or do
Oh
you?
yeah, I just got my trusty calendar right here. I mean, it's 24/7.
So,
But anyway, yeah, guys, you don't want to miss our episode next Thursday. And remember, we'll be back on our regular scheduled time at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, we have Clay Dyer. Guys, if
Oh,
you don't know who
yeah.
Clay Dyer is, you got to check him out.
right,
He is a very, very inspirational angler.
Yes.
So it is going to be a killer episode, guys. You don't want to miss it with Clay Dyer, man. We're really excited about next week's episode, just to chit chat with Clay a little bit.
so, but with that being said, Norman, let's take away this last question and let's see what our good buddy Hank has got to say with
We
his
will
answer.
roll with this last question, Hank. Now, this last question, we ask this question to all of our viewers, Hank, that comes on, and it's got to be a pretty popular question, and we've had some. You talk about rabbit holes. We just have some rabbit hole answers to this question, here so far. But if you were to have one individual on your boat to fish with you for a day, now this individual could be passed away or still with us. Who would that individual be, and why would you want to fish with him for the day?
Or her.
Or, oh yeah,
Ooh.
or her.
Golly.
We might should have prepped him for that one.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many,
Yeah.
we can take, the high road and there's all kinds of wise men and women and scholars
Well,
out
that's why we
there.
well, that's why we don't prep them for that question because it's funner to watch the expressions of
Yeah.
trying to come up with who they want to have.
Hmm. One guy. I'll tell you who it would be. Uh, and just because years ago, years ago, back when Bass University was actually done by Bass. And they'd come around. Well, they were in Roanoke, and me and my brother still only had a John boat, and I think a John boat we'd bought from Walmart. So so we went up there, and one of the two reasons why we went up there is because Larry Nixon and Denny Brower was going to be there. Well, me and my brother, I'm going to tell something bad. We decided to go eat into the hotel bar, and my brother partook a little much and went back to the room. So I ate in the restaurant by myself, and guess who comes walking through the door? Denny Brower. And so he went over and sat down. And before the waitress could get to him, I stood up. I'd already ordered, and I walked over to him and I said, Mr. Brower, I'm a huge fan. I won't drive you crazy, I promise, sir. I said, but it'd be an honor to break bread with you. And he said yes. And we sat there and talked fishing and ate dinner together. And I love Denny and have been such a big Denny fan. Before that,
Yeah.
that to be out on the boat, like I would just be like, here's my boat, Denny, show me stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
fishing
either
wise,
one of the two, either Larry
oh
Nixon and
Larry
Denny,
too, yeah. Oh
that
my
would have
God,
been
yeah,
right.
yeah. Larry Nixon too. So,
Yeah,
um, gosh, man, so many, and Aaron
yeah,
Martin's.
yeah.
There's one. I got a hat back here signed by him. Whichever way I go, signed by him somewhere back there.
So yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's another one. Huge fan, huge
yeah.
fan. So,
So that is, and there's no wrong answer to either
yeah,
to
yeah.
anything. I mean, because we've had uh, Greg Hackney being told, we've had
Oh
Joe
yeah, love
Dance
Greg.
said, and like we've we've had quite a few anglers say that they wanted to have like their grandparents or something like that, one of their
Yeah,
grandparents out on the
yeah.
boat. And but we also had Corey Johnson say he wanted to have Chris on there so he can whoop his brother. Even though they fish together all the time, he just wanted to whoop his brother. So,
Look, there's no bigger win than family. I mean, that's
oh,
just how it is.
and there's
Family
no
or your best
competitors.
friends.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But guys, we deeply appreciate you coming on here. And Hank, brother, man, it has been a pleasure to have you on. And thanks for giving some tips and techniques and stuff like that, and talking to some of these to us about some of the stuff that you do. But guys, again, we cannot stress it enough. Go to his YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button because I guarantee you, you are going to learn something. Um, and so it's just I love going to I mean there ain't no telling how many views that he has on there that it's just for me going back and rewatching videos because they are it helps you out so much and to get another perspective of how to use things and some of the things that Hank does is really not typical. Just like the free rig of how people fish it, he fishes it totally different than what most people do. And so that kind of gives you when you're in a situation to where you're using a certain bait, and then you're like, I remember Hank was doing this while he was fishing with this bait. Let me try that, and it might land you another fish in the boat. So
Yeah.
guys, just go check him out. Definitely hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell also because you want to get notified every time that that he posts a video up. And and also to help him out, let's comment on that thing because every video, if you like and comment, YouTube loves that. The algorithm helps
they
them
do.
out, and
Yep.
so we want to see. Hopefully, that that's going to shoot up over 71,000 here just because of tonight. Would be awesome, guys.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this thing up, and I'm about ready to go grab me a bite to eat. But Hank, if you'll hang on a second
I
after we
will. I
get done
will.
with this, but we hope to see you out on the water, guys. Hope you live the passion and tight lines.
Tight lines, guys. Live the passion.